Socialists are not people of character.
Okay.
They're parasites.
The people who are really driven by the radical left ideology, the real radicals, they're almost all driven by resentment and hatred.
An anti-rational mentality is necessary to be anti-capitalist.
Socialism was not an appropriate way to run a country.
No, socialism is a shitty idea in theory, and it's an immoral idea in practice.
Welcome to America, Mr. Mandela. I'm Ken Edelman. Those of us who share your struggle for human rights and against apartheid have been somewhat disappointed by the models of human rights that you have held up since being released in jail. You've met over the last 6 months 3 times with Yasser Arafat, who you have praised. You have told Gaddafi that you share the view and applaud him on his record of human rights and his drive for freedom and peace around the world. And you have praised Fidel Castro as a leader of human rights and said that Cuba was one of the countries that's head and shoulders above all other countries in human rights, despite the fact that documents at the United Nations and elsewhere show that Cuba is one of the worst. I was just wondering, are these your models of leaders of human rights? And if so, would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. Yasser Arafat, Colonel Gaddafi, Fidel Castro support our struggle to the hilt. There is no reason whatsoever why we should have any hesitation about hailing their commitment to human rights as they are being demanded in South Africa. Our attitude is based solely on the fact that they fully support the anti-apartheid struggle. They do not support it only in rhetoric. They are placing resources at our disposal for us to win this fight. That is the position.
Tip number 4 is use their arrogance against them. Libertarians and those who defend the free market are loaded with arrogance. They assume that they are smarter than everyone else, as if their discovery of some free market book or their taking of Economics 101 class has somehow made them so brilliant and so smart. They have discovered the writings of Ludwig von Mises or Ayn Rand or Milton Friedman or Bastiat, and somehow that gave them some brilliant insight. They understand the world better than everyone else. And they make very, very grandiose statements. Use their arrogance against them. For example, frequently, libertarians will say, quote, only stupid people could believe in socialism. Only idiots would believe in socialism. Only morons. Only evil people. Only those who hate themselves will believe in socialism, right? Have fun with that, right? For example, Albert Einstein, the great physicist, published an essay in 1949 called Why Socialism, in which he defends the Marxist critique of capitalism and calls for a society in which the major centers of economic power are controlled by the people. According to these libertarians, Albert Einstein, the greatest physicist in the world, one of the greatest minds, someone who's considered to be one of the most brilliant men who ever lived, is an idiot because he disagrees with them, right? Or they'll say only evil people believed in socialism. Well, Nelson Mandela, the first president of post-apartheid South Africa, was on the Central Committee of the African Communist Party, the South African Communist Party. He was on the Central Committee. He was a communist and a friend of Fidel Castro. So, are they saying that Nelson Mandela was evil? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., toward the final years of his life, though he was never a Marxist, called for a democratic form of socialism. He aligned himself with Michael Harrington and forces like that, and he was kind of a social democrat. So are they saying that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was evil, right? These libertarians, they consider themselves to be very brilliant. They consider anyone who would disagree with them to be a complete fool, but yet history is full of brilliant, successful, high-achieving individuals who believe in socialism. For example, the most widely loved American novel, one of the most widely loved American novels, is The Grapes of Wrath. It's considered required reading. It's considered one of the greatest works of American literature. The author of this book is John Steinbeck, and John Steinbeck was a fellow traveler of the Communist Party during the 1930s. And in fact, The Grapes of Wrath book itself contains passages comparing Lenin and Marx to Jefferson, and it has very, very kind of radical statements in it. So are they saying that the author of The Grapes of Wrath is an idiot or is evil compared to them, right? The level of arrogance that they have, right? They assume that only someone who's a complete fool would believe in socialism. It never occurs to them those who believe in socialism might know something that they don't know, right? Use this arrogance against them.
Mr. Mandela, you've said a number of very controversial things in that last response.